You don't belong here!
She doesn't belong here. Han Ji-woo's voice cut through the silence like a blade, her eyes fixed on Aaliyah with pure disdain. A woman like her will never be part of this family. The sooner she understands that and leaves, the sooner you can return to your real life, Min-ho. Aaliyah's chest tightened. 25 pairs of eyes stared from around the opulent table, waiting to watch her break. Min-ho rose so suddenly his chair toppled backward. His expression shifted into something terrifying. This was Seoul's most dangerous crime lord, and everyone in that room recognized it. "You're correct about one thing, Mother," he said, his tone quiet but lethal. "Aaliyah has no place at this table." Aaliyah felt hot tears begin to fall. He was siding with them. But Min-ho walked directly to her, brushed away her tears, and helped her stand, because her seat is at the head of it. "What on earth are you saying?" His mother's voice rose sharply. Min-ho pulled out his phone. "Send them in now." 4 men in dark suits entered, carrying briefcases full of papers. Min-ho snatched a heavy folder and slammed it onto the polished wood. Wine glasses shook. Complete silence descended. "This house where you're sitting right now, judging my wife," his words were sharp as knives, "every inch of it belongs to her. Every brick, every painting, all of it." The room exploded into chaos. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and I hope you're all having an amazing day. Today's story will absolutely wreck you emotionally. We've got love that breaks every rule, a crime boss who would burn the world down for his woman, family betrayal that'll leave you speechless, revenge, passion, and those steamy scenes you can't get enough of. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell because I drop news stories every single day. Now let me take you back to where everything started. 3 years ago, Aaliyah was a corporate attorney in Los Angeles, surviving on espresso and maybe 4 hours of sleep per night. Around 1 a.m., she wandered into a tiny Korean BBQ spot near her firm. That's when she met him. Min-ho sat alone in the back corner, eating kimchi jjigae, desperately trying to escape his bodyguards for 10 minutes of normalcy. When Aaliyah entered, exhausted but radiant, he found himself unable to look away. "May I join you?" he eventually asked. "Absolutely not," she replied, assuming he was just another random guy hitting on her. But the owner, this adorable elderly man, had different plans. He practically forced Min-ho into Aaliyah's booth. "You two look lonely. Sit together. Eat. Be happy." So they talked for hours about everything under the sun. Hopes, regrets, what kept them up at night. He never revealed his true identity. Nothing about the criminal organization, the wealth, the constant danger. He was simply Min-ho, and she was simply Aaliyah. They talked until closing time, then walked through downtown LA watching the sunrise. "I was convinced I'd never find you again," Min-ho confessed months afterward. "But I returned to that restaurant every single night for a week. And I showed up on night 6, Aaliyah said, and you were sitting there waiting." They spent 18 months together before he revealed the truth about his actual life. By that point, she loved him so completely that the empire, the power, the blood money, none of it changed anything. "I was terrified you'd run," Min-ho told her. But she stayed because she'd fallen for the man who made her homemade soup when she had the flu, who taught himself to make her grandmother's cornbread recipe, who just held her when she broke down over her mother's death. That man, not the empire. 8 months ago, they married in a private ceremony in California, only them and 2 random witnesses. And that's when Min-ho did something that would shake everything. He transferred his complete inheritance, the mansion, the properties, every single asset his grandfather left him, into Aaliyah's name, exclusively. Not as some romantic display, but as evidence. Evidence that she wasn't using him for his fortune. Evidence that his trust in her was absolute. "If you control your own wealth," he explained to her, "everyone will understand you chose me for who I am." Aaliyah had refused at first, but Minho wouldn't budge. His grandfather's will had actually demanded it, a final test to ensure Minho would find someone deserving of the family empire, and he had. But nobody knew yet, not until tonight. "I'm terrified," Aaliyah whispered as they drove toward the estate for the family dinner. She smoothed her elegant navy dress, watching Seoul's neon lights fade into the exclusive hills where Korea's elite resided. Minho's fingers stayed intertwined with hers. "You bow to no one tonight. Walk in there like you own the place." "Because technically I do," she said with a nervous laugh. "Exactly, because you do." The estate appeared before them, a massive traditional hanok renovated with every modern luxury imaginable. As they exited the black Genesis G90, Aaliyah immediately sensed the hostility. "Appa!" a shrill voice called. Yuna, Minho's cousin, rushed over in a crimson dress, completely ignoring Aaliyah's existence. She hooked her arm through Minho's, wedging herself between them. "Yuna, that's disrespectful," Minho said, stepping back, pulling Aaliyah close to his side. Yuna's smile was ice. "Oh, you brought her?" "I brought my wife," Minho corrected, his tone dropping into dangerous territory. "Show some respect." "Of course. Welcome, Aaliyah." Yuna looked her up and down with barely concealed disgust. "We're all curious about his selection." "Not selection," Aaliyah corrected firmly. "Wife." "Yes, silly me. Come inside. Everyone's anxious to meet you." The dining hall was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers that cost more than luxury cars. A table that could seat 40 people. Minho's family and business associates were already positioned. At the head sat his mother, Han Ji-woo, elegant, calculating, and radiating ice. Beside her, his older brother, Min Jun, along with various cousins, aunts, uncles, and criminal associates. "Minho," her mother announced, standing, "how generous of you to finally join us." He bowed respectfully. "Mother, I appreciate the invitation." He gestured toward Aaliyah. "You've met Aaliyah, my wife." The temperature plummeted. "Yes, how could anyone forget?" Aaliyah bowed politely despite the frost in the woman's voice. "Mrs. Han, thank you for welcoming us. Please, everyone sit. Minho, you'll be here at my right hand." Minho pulled out the chair beside him for Aaliyah. "Oh, I don't believe there's space there," Yuna interrupted, sliding into the seat. "Aaliyah can sit at the opposite end." "Yuna, move now," Minho said flatly. "Minho," his mother cut in, "don't be rude to Yuna. She's blood. Your wife can sit elsewhere." The tension was crushing. Aaliyah touched Minho's arm gently. "It's okay. I can sit somewhere else." "No, it's absolutely not okay." He turned toward his mother. "Aaliyah is my wife. She sits beside me, period." "Minho, don't create drama," Min Jun said wearily. "Just take your seat." For a heartbeat, Minho looked ready to explode, but Aaliyah squeezed his hand. "Really, let's just have a nice dinner." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. Aaliyah walked to the far end of the table, her heels echoing on the marble floors. Every single eye tracked her, every whisper sliced through her. She sat between an uncle who immediately turned away and a younger cousin who stared like she was from another planet. "So," the cousin said loudly, "is it true what people say about black women? That you're all super loud and aggressive?" Aaliyah's eyes widened in shock. "I'm sorry, what?" "Junho," Minho's voice cracked like thunder. "Apologize immediately." "I'm just asking questions," Junho said innocently. "I've never actually met a black person in real life." "Your questions are racism," Aaliyah said calmly, though her hands shook. "I'm not here to be your cultural experiment." "Such disrespect," an aunt whispered. "No understanding of our customs. She's too foreign to ever understand our ways," another added. Minho stood abruptly, his chair scraping harshly. "That's enough." "Sit down," his mother commanded. "We're about to begin dinner." The servers brought course after elaborate course. Conversation flowed freely around Aaliyah, but nobody spoke to her directly. She was a ghost, invisible, except she felt every judgmental stare, every contemptuous glance burning into her skin. So, Minho, his mother said, Yuna has been doing exceptional work with the organization. Intelligent, loyal, understands our traditions and values completely. That's nice, Minho said tightly, his eyes constantly finding Aaliyah at the other end. She would make an excellent partner for you, Jiwoo continued, professionally, naturally, and perhaps personally, if you would see reason. Aaliyah's chopsticks froze halfway to her mouth. I have a wife, mother, Minho said dangerously. A mistake that can be undone, his mother said dismissively. Divorce her. Compensate her financially. She obviously married you for money anyway. These foreign women see a wealthy Korean man and Mrs. Han. Aaliyah's voice rang clearly from the end of the table, surprising everyone, especially herself. I married your son because I'm in love with him. Money was completely irrelevant. The table went silent. Oh, how touching, Yuna said sarcastically. The billionaire thing was just a happy accident, I'm certain. I had my own career, my own money before Minho existed in my life, Aaliyah said steadily. I was a partner at a major corporate law firm in Los Angeles. I walked away from a 7-figure salary to move here for him. Because I loved him, because I believed in what we could create together. A lawyer, one of the uncles scoffed, in America, that's meaningless here in Korea. You sacrificed so much, Yuna said mockingly. How noble of you. And what exactly do you contribute now, besides spending Minho's fortune? Yuna, Minho warned. No, it's a valid question, Yuna pressed. What does she actually contribute, Oppa? To this family, to the business? She can't even speak our language properly. I'm learning Korean, Aaliyah interjected. She doesn't understand our culture, our history. She doesn't fit into this world. Look at her. Look around this table, Oppa. She doesn't belong in our family. Stop talking, Minho's voice boomed through the massive hall. It's simply the truth, and everyone here recognizes it, his brother Minjun added. You married her impulsively, probably fascinated by how exotic and different she seemed. But this is your actual life, Minho. This family, this organization, this world. She can never truly be part of it. Aaliyah's heart shattered completely. She felt the tears she'd been fighting start to spill over. Minho walked deliberately down the length of the table toward her, each step purposeful and measured. But instead of walking past her toward the exit, he extended his hand. Because she sits at the head of it. Confused murmurs rippled through the room. What are you talking about? His mother demanded. Minho pulled Aaliyah to her feet, wiping her tears gently with his thumbs. I'm so sorry. This ends right now. He turned back toward the table. Since you all seem confused about where my wife stands in this family, in this estate, allow me to clarify. He pulled out his phone and made a quick call. Bring them inside now. Within seconds, 4 men in suits entered the dining hall carrying boxes of legal documents. Minho's personal attorney, Mr. Choi, was with them. Mr. Choi, Minho said, please explain to my family the ownership structure of this property. The attorney cleared his throat uncomfortably. As of 8 months ago, the Han estate, including this mansion and all surrounding land, was transferred into the exclusive ownership of Mrs. Aaliyah Han. The reaction was volcanic. What? His mother screamed. That's impossible! Minjun shouted. Brother, what have you done? Yuna gasped audibly. Minho grabbed a folder from one of the boxes and slammed it onto the table. These are the legal property deeds. This mansion where you're all sitting right now, judging my wife, telling her she doesn't belong. She owns every single inch of it. Every stone, every chandelier, every piece of artwork on these walls. All of it belongs to her. Minho, you cannot be serious, his mother said, her face draining of color. I'm completely serious, he said. 8 months ago, when Aaliyah and I married, I transferred everything grandfather left me into her name exclusively. This estate, the vineyard at Jeju, the high-rise in Gangnam, the beach villa in Busan, all of it. Because unlike all of you, I trust her completely. I love her, and I wanted her to know she's not with me for money. She has her own. He turned to Aaliyah, his expression softening dramatically. You own more property than anyone at this table, baby. You're not dependent on me. You never will be. You're with me because you actively choose to be, and that means everything to me." Aaliyah was crying fully now, but they were different tears entirely. Minho pulled her into his arms, holding her protectively. "So when you say," he continued, turning back toward his stunned family, "that black woman will never sit at our table," you're absolutely correct, because it's not your table anymore. It's hers. This is her house, her table, her chandelier, and you know what that makes all of you? The silence was deafening. "Her guests," he finished coldly. "Extremely unwelcome ones at that." "You've completely lost your mind," his brother said, standing up. "You gave away grandfather's entire legacy to some woman you barely know for what? Physical attraction?" Minho moved so fast his brother couldn't react. One instant they were feet apart. The next, Minho had him by the throat, lifting him slightly off the floor. The dangerous crime lord was fully present now. "That's my wife you're disrespecting," Minho said, his voice lethal. "The woman I love, the woman I wake up beside every morning and thank God for. You will respect her or you will leave permanently." "Minho," his mother begged, "release him. He's your brother." "He's disrespecting my wife in her own home," Minho said. "That makes him unwelcome." He released Minjun, who stumbled backward, gasping. "All of you," Minho said, addressing the entire room, "you've revealed your true nature tonight. You've demonstrated that your acceptance was always conditional, that your family love had boundaries. Well, mine doesn't. Aaliyah is my family, my priority, my entire world, and if you can't accept that, the door is right there." "You're choosing her over your entire family?" his mother asked, tears forming. "No, you're forcing me to choose," Minho corrected, "and yes, I choose her, every single time, every single day, without a moment's hesitation." Guys, can I just pause here for a second? The power in this moment, the way Minho defended his wife. If you're loving the story, please hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications so you catch every dramatic story I post. Smash that like button if you're team Aaliyah and Minho, and drop a comment telling me what you would do in this situation. Would you fight or would you walk away? Let me know your thoughts. Now, back to the story, because things are about to get even more intense. "This is absolutely insane," Yuna said, standing. "Minho, you can't possibly—" "I can," he interrupted sharply, "and I did. Mr. Choi, please read the next document." The attorney pulled out another paper. "This is a letter from the late Mr. Han Sung-min, Minho's grandfather, written shortly before his death. He specified that the estate should transfer to Minho with one condition, that it be placed in his spouse's name upon marriage as a test of true character and genuine love." "Grandfather wanted this?" Jiwoo whispered in shock. "He did," Minho confirmed. "He told me before he died that a man who truly loves doesn't hold power over his partner, he shares it equally. He trusted me to find someone worthy of sharing this legacy with, and I found her. Aaliyah is more worthy than anyone in this room." "We're your blood," an aunt protested loudly. "And you've used that as justification to be cruel," Minho shot back. "Blood doesn't grant you permission to abuse, to demean, to dehumanize. Aaliyah has been nothing but respectful to every single one of you, and you've treated her like garbage from the very first day." "Because she's not one of us," his mother cried out. "She's different. She doesn't understand our ways." "No, Mother," Minho said more gently. "She's different because she's kind. She's different because she sees people for who they truly are, not what they can provide. She's different because she fell in love with me before she knew about any of this wealth. When we met in Los Angeles, she had no idea who I was. She just knew Minho the man, not the boss, not the heir, just me." He pulled Aaliyah closer against him. "And that woman, that brilliant, intelligent, compassionate woman, fell in love with who I am at my absolute core. Can any of you claim you love me like that? Or do you just love what I represent, what I can provide for you?" The question hung unanswered in the heavy air.
Aaliyah finally found her voice. "I never wanted any of this," she said quietly. "I never wanted to create division between Minho and his family. I told him from the very beginning this would be difficult, that people wouldn't accept us, but he insisted that love was sufficient. She looked at Minho with such profound love that several people at the table looked away, uncomfortable with the raw intimacy of the moment. And you know what, Aaliyah continued, he was absolutely right. Love is sufficient. Not your approval, not your acceptance, just his love. That's all I'll ever need. But Minho needs his family, Jiwoo said desperately. The organization, the connections, I have everything I need, Minho interrupted. Aaliyah is my family, and we'll build our own legacy together from scratch. So that's it? Minjun asked bitterly. You're just cutting us all off completely? No, Minho said firmly. You're cutting yourselves off. I'm giving you a choice right here, right now. Accept Aaliyah as my wife. Treat her with the respect she absolutely deserves, or leave this house and don't return until you can. You can't kick us out of the family estate, an uncle protested. It's not the family estate anymore, Minho reminded him coldly. It's Aaliyah's estate, and I'm quite certain she doesn't want people who've been cruel to her living here. All eyes turned to Aaliyah expectantly. This was her moment. She could be vindictive, could throw them all out immediately, could exact revenge for every cruel comment, every disgusted look, every moment they'd made her feel worthless. But that wasn't who she was at her core. I don't want to be the reason this family destroys itself, Aaliyah said slowly. Despite how you've all treated me, I know Minho loves you deeply, and because I love him, I want him to have his family in his life. She straightened her shoulders, channeling every bit of strength she possessed. But I absolutely will not be disrespected in my own home. I will not be relegated to corners and treated as inferior. If you stay for dinner tonight, you will treat me as an equal, as Minho's wife, as the owner of this house. If you can't manage that, then yes, I'm asking you to leave immediately. The absolute audacity, Yuna muttered under her breath. The audacity? Aaliyah repeated, something sharp entering her voice. You want to discuss audacity? You've spent the last hour insulting me, questioning my motives, my character, my worth as a human being. You've made racist comments about my skin color and my culture. You've tried to push another woman on my husband directly in front of me, and I'm the audacious one for requesting basic respect? Yuna, Minho said coldly, you need to leave immediately. Fine, Yuna grabbed her designer purse. I don't want to stay in this house anyway, not when it's been contaminated by— Finish that sentence, Minho warned, taking a threatening step toward her, and I will personally ensure you never work in this country again. Your family's business survives on my goodwill. Test me right now. Yuna's face flushed red, but she wisely kept her mouth shut. She stormed out, her heels clicking angrily across the marble. One by one, several other family members stood and exited, their disapproval crystal clear. But some remained. Minho's youngest cousin, a university student named Soo-jin, stood up and walked down to where Aaliyah and Minho stood together. I'm so sorry, she said, bowing deeply to Aaliyah. I'm incredibly sorry for how we treated you tonight. It was absolutely wrong. You didn't deserve any of that. Aaliyah was genuinely surprised. Thank you, Soo-jin. That means a lot. Can I ask you something? Soo-jin said nervously. Of course you can. How did you and Oppa actually meet? Everyone's been so focused on being angry about the marriage that nobody ever asked about the actual love story. Aaliyah smiled genuinely, the first real smile since entering this house. She looked at Minho. You want to tell it, or should I? You tell it, he said, wrapping his arm around her waist protectively. You always tell it better anyway. They returned to the table, but this time Minho seated Aaliyah at the head, in his grandfather's chair. He stood behind her, hands resting on her shoulders protectively. It was 3 years ago, Aaliyah began. I was in Los Angeles working on this massive case. I was absolutely exhausted, surviving on espresso and maybe 4 hours of sleep. It was past midnight and I stopped at this little Korean restaurant near my firm that was somehow still open. I was in LA for business, Minho continued, sitting in that same restaurant trying to escape my security team for just a few minutes of peace and quiet. He was sitting in the corner, eating soup and looking absolutely miserable, Aaliyah said with a soft laugh. You were stunning, Minho said softly, even exhausted and stressed beyond belief. You walked in like you owned the entire place. I literally couldn't stop staring at you. He was staring so intensely that I genuinely thought something was wrong with my appearance. I actually checked to make sure I didn't have food in my teeth. I finally gathered the courage to approach her, Minho said, asked if I could buy her dinner, and I said no immediately, Aaliyah said, because I assumed he was just another random guy trying to hit on me after a long day. But then the restaurant owner, this incredibly sweet elderly man, decided to play matchmaker. Minho said. He physically pushed him into my booth, Aaliyah laughed, just shoved him right in across from me and said, You both look sad, eat together, talk, be less sad, I promise. Even Ji-woo cracked the tiniest smile at that. So we talked for hours, Aaliyah continued, about absolutely everything. Life, dreams, regrets, fears, what we wanted from life. He never told me who he actually was, what he did for a living. He was just Minho, and I was just Aaliyah. She told me about her case, this pro bono work she was doing for an immigrant family facing deportation, how she was fighting this massive corporation entirely on her own time.
And he told me about feeling trapped by expectations, Aaliyah said, about wanting to be good but being born into something incredibly complicated. We talked until the restaurant closed, Minho said, and then we walked around Los Angeles until the sun came up. We didn't kiss that night, Aaliyah said, didn't even exchange phone numbers initially. I genuinely thought I'd lost her forever, Minho admitted. Thought it was just one perfect night I'd remember for the rest of my life. But then, 6 nights later, I walked into that same restaurant, Aaliyah said, and there he was, sitting in the exact same spot. I'd been going back every single night, Minho said, desperately hoping she'd return. We dated for 18 months before he told me the truth about who he really was, Aaliyah said. And by then, I was already so deeply in love with the man that the title, the money, the criminal empire, none of it mattered at all. I was absolutely terrified she'd leave when she discovered everything, Minho admitted. But she didn't leave. I didn't care about the Mafia connections or the danger or any of it, Aaliyah said. I cared about the man who made me homemade soup when I was sick, who taught himself to make my grandmother's cornbread recipe, even though he'd never baked in his life, who just held me when I cried about losing my mom and didn't try to fix anything, just let me grieve. She reached up and squeezed Minho's hand on her shoulder. That's who I married, she said, looking around the table at the remaining family members. Not a bank account, not a powerful name. A man who sees me, who values me, who loves me exactly as I am, without trying to change anything. There was a long, heavy silence. Finally, Ji-woo spoke quietly. I lost my husband 12 years ago, she said softly. Han Sung-min's son, Minho's father. We had an arranged marriage. I grew to care for him deeply, but it was never what you two clearly have. She looked at Aaliyah directly for the first time all evening. I've been so focused on tradition, on bloodlines, on what I believed was protecting this family that I forgot what my father-in-law always said, that love is the foundation of absolutely everything. Without it, all the money and power in the world is meaningless. Mother, Minho said softly. I'm not claiming I'm suddenly comfortable with all of this, Ji-woo continued. Change is incredibly difficult for me, but I can see how you look at her, Minho, like she's your entire world, and that's exactly how your grandfather looked at your grandmother every single day. That's authentic love. She stood and walked slowly toward where Aaliyah sat. Aaliyah's heart pounded as the elegant older woman approached her. Ji-woo extended her hand formally. May I try again? I'm Han Ji-woo, your mother-in-law, and I would like very much to get to know my son's wife properly. Aaliyah took her hand, tears streaming freely down her face now. I'd really like that too. Good, Ji-woo said, because my son is absolutely right. If this is your house now, then you shouldn't be sitting at the far end of the table, isolated. You should be here, at the head, where you belong. Minho pulled out the chair next to Aaliyah for his mother, and slowly, the family members who had chosen to remain began to move closer, rearranging themselves around the head of the table. Not everyone came back that night. Some had left and wouldn't return for months, possibly years. Some might never come back at all. But the ones who stayed, who chose love over prejudice and tradition, began to ask Aaliyah real questions about her life, her career, her interests and passions. Sujin asked about being an attorney in America. An aunt asked about her family background and childhood. Min-jun, who had stayed despite his earlier confrontation, awkwardly apologized and asked how she was adjusting to life in Seoul. The dinner that had started with such hatred and hostility slowly transformed into something warmer and more genuine. Not perfect by any means, not without awkward moments and uncomfortable silences, but real and authentic. Hours later, after the last guest had departed and the staff had finished cleaning, Minho and Aaliyah stood on the balcony overlooking the estate grounds. The Seoul city lights sparkled brilliantly in the distance. "I'm sorry you had to endure that tonight," Minho said, holding her from behind, his chin resting gently on her head. "I'm not sorry," Aaliyah said. "It needed to happen eventually. We couldn't keep avoiding your family forever." Still, some of the things they said were absolutely horrible and cruel. Aaliyah finished, "But you stood up for me. You didn't let them make me feel small and worthless, and that's what matters most." He turned her around gently to face him. "When I transferred the properties into your name, it wasn't just about proving you weren't with me for money or status." "No?" she asked. "No," he said. "It was about showing you that I trust you completely and absolutely, that I'm all in, that there's no part of my life that isn't also yours now." "Minho, that estate is your family legacy, spanning generations." "And now, you're my family," he said simply. "You're my legacy. Whatever we build together, whatever children we might have someday, that's what truly matters. Not buildings or land or titles." "Children," Aaliyah said, raising an eyebrow curiously. "We've never actually discussed." "I know," he interrupted gently, "and we don't have to decide anything right now or anytime soon. But Aaliyah, when I think about the future, any future, you're in every single vision, every dream, every plan I make." He cupped her face tenderly in his hands. "You're it for me, the only woman I'll ever love this deeply. And tonight, watching you handle my family with such incredible grace and strength, I fell in love with you all over again. Even when I was crying and falling apart," she teased gently. "Especially then," he said seriously, "because you let me see you vulnerable and raw. You trusted me with your pain and heartbreak. That's intimacy deeper than anything physical could ever be." "Speaking of physical," Aaliyah said, a mischievous glint appearing in her eyes, "we have this entire mansion completely to ourselves tonight." Minho grinned widely, that dangerous, sexy smile that always made her knees weak. "Mrs. Han, are you suggesting something inappropriate?" "I'm suggesting," she said, walking backward toward the master bedroom, pulling him by his tie, "that we christen every single room in this house tonight, starting with our bedroom." "Best idea you've had all night," he growled, lifting her up effortlessly. She wrapped her legs around his waist as he carried her inside, kicking the door closed firmly behind them. He laid her gently on the bed, hovering over her carefully. "I love you," he whispered intensely. "Saranghae, with everything I am, everything I have." "I love you too," she whispered back. "Show me how much." And he did, worshiping every inch of her body, taking his time, making absolutely sure she felt cherished and adored and precious. Their lovemaking was slow and intense and passionate, a reaffirmation of everything they'd declared to his family, a claiming and a surrender happening simultaneously. Later, wrapped in each other's arms, sweaty and completely satisfied, Aaliyah traced lazy patterns on his bare chest. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what, exactly?" "For fighting for us, for not making me feel like I have to compete with your family for your love and attention." You never have to compete for anything, he said firmly. You've already won. You won my heart the exact moment you laughed at my terrible joke in that LA restaurant. It really was a terrible joke, she agreed with a laugh. The worst I'd ever heard. But you laughed anyway because you're kind, he said. Because you were so earnestly trying to make me smile after a horrible day, she said. How could I not fall for that genuine sweetness? They lay in comfortable silence for a while, just breathing together, hearts beating in sync. What happens now? Aaliyah asked quietly, with your family and everything. Now we simply live our lives, Minho said. Some of them will come around fully eventually, some might not ever, but we're not responsible for their choices and reactions. We're only responsible for our own. And what choice are you making? To love you, he said simply. Every single day, in every possible way, to build a life with you that's full of joy and passion and meaning and purpose, to show you every single day that you're the best decision I ever made in my entire life. Pretty sure I'm the lucky one in this relationship, Aaliyah said softly. No, Minho said, kissing her forehead tenderly. We both are incredibly lucky. We found each other in a city of millions against impossible odds. That's not luck or coincidence. That's destiny and fate. 4 months later, Aaliyah stood in the same dining hall, but absolutely everything was different now. She was hosting a charity gala for the Immigration Legal Aid Foundation she'd established to help international families navigating Korean immigration law and citizenship processes. The hall was filled with people from every walk of life imaginable, Korean government officials, international ambassadors, expatriates from dozens of countries, and yes, many members of Minho's family. Ji-woo had become one of the foundation's biggest financial supporters, using her extensive social connections to bring in donations and raise awareness. Soo-jin volunteered as a translator for immigrant families. Even Min-jun had contributed a substantial amount and brought several of his business partners as donors. Yoona and several others who had walked out that night still hadn't reconciled with them, but Aaliyah had made complete peace with that reality. You couldn't force people to grow or change. You look absolutely stunning, Minho whispered, coming up behind her in the crowded room. She wore a gorgeous emerald gown that shimmered brilliantly when she moved. You clean up pretty well yourself, she said, admiring him in his perfectly tailored tuxedo. Dance with me right now. The hostess shouldn't abandon her guests like that, Aaliyah protested weakly. Just 5 minutes, Minho insisted, pulling her onto the dance floor. As they swayed together to the music, Aaliyah looked around the packed room in wonder. Can you believe this actually happened? 4 months ago, your family didn't even want me in this house. Now I'm hosting a major fundraiser here? I can absolutely believe it, Minho said, because you're extraordinary and remarkable. You turned pain and rejection into purpose and meaning. You could have walked away from Korea, from my family, from all of this chaos, but instead you chose to bloom exactly where you were planted. Bloom where I was planted, Aaliyah repeated thoughtfully. I really like that phrase. My grandfather used to say it constantly, Minho said. He was a passionate gardener at heart. He always said the most beautiful flowers were the ones that grew and thrived in the most difficult soil conditions. Am I a flower in this metaphor? You're an entire garden, Minho said tenderly. Beautiful, thriving, colorful, bringing life and beauty to everything around you. You're being so poetic tonight, Aaliyah teased gently. What's gotten into you? Minho stopped dancing abruptly. Right there in the middle of the dance floor, in front of hundreds of people, he dropped down on one knee. Minho, we're already married, Aaliyah said, genuinely confused. I know that, he said, pulling out a ring box, but our first wedding was rushed in California with just us and 2 random strangers as witnesses. You deserve so much more. You deserve romance and family and celebration. He opened the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring surrounded by smaller emeralds. Aaliyah Han, will you marry me again?
Will you let me give you the wedding you truly deserved? The celebration where all our loved ones can witness exactly how much I adore you?" Aaliyah was crying again, but these were purely happy tears. "Yes," she said, voice breaking with emotion. "1,000 times yes." The entire room erupted in thunderous applause as Minho slipped the ring on her finger and stood to kiss her deeply. Camera flashes went off everywhere, people cheered loudly, and for a perfect moment, Aaliyah felt like the luckiest woman in the entire world. Not because of the ring, or the mansion, or the money, or the power, but because of the man who loved her enough to fight the entire world for her happiness. If you're still watching right now, I just want to say thank you so much for sticking with this entire story. What an emotional journey this was, right? Aaliyah and Minho showed us that real love isn't about perfection or ease. It's about choosing each other every single day, especially when it's incredibly hard and painful. If this story touched your heart at all, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment telling me your absolute favorite part. Did you love the confrontation scene, the romantic moments, Minho's grand gesture at the end? Let me know what resonated with you. And please share this video with someone who loves a good romance story. Trust me, they'll absolutely thank you for it.